Hey, what's up everyone? Let's get right into today's case, Michael Alig and the Club Kids. If you've seen the movie Party Monster, chances are you probably know a little bit about it. But there's so much more to the story, so let's get into it right now. So Michael Alig was born in 1966 in South Bend, Indiana. South Bend is home to Notre Dame University. Other than that, it's pretty much the quintessential small town. Michael grew up in a middle-class family. His father was a computer programmer. His mother was a German immigrant. His parents divorced when he was 4. He also had an older brother, John, who was a track star. Michael attended public schools in South Bend. He was a good student and was involved in a number of extracurricular activities, including the school newspaper and the debate team, and he even took a girl to prom. Michael knew he was different from a very young age, though.
In kindergarten, I knew that I was gay, and that made me feel different. But my mother always made me feel that being different was better, so it wasn't, necessarily so traumatic for me. But nonetheless, I did feel different, and I didn't feel like I belonged with the other boys, and then I didn't feel with the girls either.
Michael was pretty flamboyant, so South Bend wasn't the easiest place for him to grow up.
Clothes, he was, the fashion police, and he was oftentimes shocked people actually with his clothing. He was way ahead of the fashion, and people would think, this guy really dresses weird. No, when in fact they were weird because they weren't up to date.
When he left South Bend in 1984, he attended Fordham University in New York City. He didn't last long in college, but Michael quickly became a fixture of the city's nightlife scene. He worked as a doorman at the popular nightclub Danceteria, where he met and befriended many of the city's most fashionable and influential people. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, New York City was very different than the New York we know today. Times Square was full of crime and adult stores, but the party scene was wild. It was a playground for the avant-garde, and the Club Kids emerged as the poster children for this scene. These were young, creative, and sometimes outrageous individuals who lived to party and challenge societal norms. They adorned themselves in flamboyant costumes, often taking inspiration from pop culture, cartoons, and even nightmares. Michael Alig emerged as a leader of the Club Kids, often referred to as the King of the Club Kids. His parties were legendary, and they weren't just about dancing. They were immersive experiences that transported revelers to otherworldly realms. They threw a party under a bridge in Queens, Burger King, and of course, all of the hip clubs. Now, let's talk about those outfits. The Club Kids took dressing up to a whole new level. Picture this: towering platform shoes, glitter, feathers, and outfits that defied gravity. They weren't just going out, they were creating art with their bodies. The goal was to be seen, to be unforgettable, and boy, did they succeed. Lady Gaga has even copied some of her outfits directly from the Club Kids.
Three, two, one, jump!
The Club Kids even became mainstream, appearing in 90s talk shows to some pretty hilarious results.
Last year I made about $20,000.
Oh, wait, that's
so
stand up.
that's really successful in my book.
What about that? He is, I guess, in that indicator at least, relatively successful. He made a lot of money getting people to go to parties. Is that what you do, Michael?
Yeah.
But after the club scene dies off, and like every fad, it'll come and go. He'll be unemployed, and we'll be forced to take care of him, and he'll be a problem in society, and the whole shooting match. So, enjoy your success while you have it now. But when you fizzle out and go into Never Never Land, we'll forget about you.
Wait, sit down, guys. I may come back to you, but let me ask. Julie Jules.
Well, this gentleman here chooses not to accept our society, which is a very elite society, and partly it's because we choose not to accept them. These are the kinds of people that do not get into nightclubs. And
a relatively new term today, celebutants. We'll meet our celebutants of nightlife. First is Michael Alig. Michael never imagined what life could be like when he left his small town in Indiana to experience nightlife in the Big Apple. Is it an art form, too?
I think it's an art form. I dropped out of society when Reagan got in office. And I've been underground ever since. In fact, I think it's important that you love yourself. I think everybody say love. Everybody say love.
Michael on the right from Indiana. Now, what do your old friends in Indiana do you expect? What are they thinking watching you right now? Love your haircut. I mean, it's just sensational.
Well,
low maintenance. I see that. It's great.
I don't know. I guess they're jealous because I'm having a lot of fun and they're not. I'm making a lot of money, having a lot of fun, and they're not.
I get the orange ears and the pink nose, but why the lipstick?
I'm not wearing any lipstick.
The drug ecstasy. I don't want to talk a whole lot about... You don't have to tell your personal story if you don't feel like it, but is it a fact that you gave the drug to your mother, Michael?
I don't remember.
Let me remind you, you gave your mother the drug, and she then, while hallucinating, whatever, said, I remember, Michael, I have to tell you, I've known you were gay since you were 2 years old. I know all the boys that you liked in high school.
That wasn't me.
Oh, okay.
It might have been. I forget a lot. I forget a lot.
Yeah, it's from the ecstasy. You turned your mother on so she could understand you better, and...
No, it's not. I didn't turn her on so that she could understand me better. I guess I turned her on because it was a lot of. I mean, you're talking about ecstasy, I guess, because it was a lot of fun. And
tell us about ecstasy.
Well, what do you want to know about it? It's a
what is it,
pill.
and who takes it?
It's a pill, and everybody takes it.
And what does it? What is it illegal?
No, it's perfectly legal. Of course it's illegal.
So, but it's widely available.
Well, you know, as much as anything else is.
And you gave one to your mom?
I gave some to my mother.
And Mom's here, Mom. Elkie.
Yes.
What happened when Michael did that?
It was a headache pill.
You thought it was a headache pill?
Yes.
And how did you feel after you took this pill?
Got rid of my headache.
Now, where was Michael raised, Elkie?
He was raised in South Bend, Indiana.
In South Bend, Indiana.
Yes.
Now, what would the folks in South Bend, the home of Notre Dame University, say if they saw Michael now?
More power to you.
Do you feel... I don't want to... Again, I don't want to get too heavy too soon, but, I mean, you took a drug from him, he got you loaded, and then what happened? What did you talk about?
It wasn't a drug, it was a headache pill, I'll tell you, and I felt really, really good, and he says...
Were you and Michael able to communicate in a way you had not been able to previously?
No. Michael and I communicate no matter what.
What do you think about his lifestyle? Did you see his shoes? He got some great... I think platform shoes are coming back. I remember them from the 70s.
Michael is... I must say, Michael's so much happier now that he's in New York, being able to express himself and is doing what he wants to do and making money doing something that he enjoys. And I think
so you approve?
Definitely, I approve of Michael.
How do you make money at that, Michael?
At going out? Well, it's more than sort of just going out. I book events at Limelight and
Limelight, one of the big clubs here in town.
Right. I book events. You know, that's basically how I make my money.
Now, John Boy. Yes. Now you think Michael Alig is kind of a guru, don't you?
Yeah, he's definitely a leader for club kids. I mean, he encourages people to move here. I mean, I just recently moved here from Chicago, and he got me a job, and I'm...
Michael, you make your living doing this, do you?
Do I? I mean,
yes. Are you Michael Alig?
Uh-huh.
That's good. Alig, all right, we're off to a good start. You're from Indiana, and you did it there?
I did it there. No,
Yeah.
there was nothing to do there.
Yeah. You get paid by club managers to dress up and encourage people to come to the club. Do I understand this?
Well,
Yeah, I suppose it, yeah.
Yeah, it's a talk show, Michael. If you don't share with us, explain to these people what happens. What is this about?
Well, then, no, that
Maybe
really
I should. Maybe I should. You're all dropouts. You're ne'er-do-wells. You have no focus in your life. You have no idea what you're going to do. You're young, and you're out for a good time. You're hedonistic. All you care is about fun and games and the whole...
So, as you might recognize from that clip, some of the club kids would go on to become celebrities today. RuPaul, Chloe Sevigny, and even Madonna. They were all former club kids. Michael Alig was the ringleader of this circus, and he reveled in the spotlight. Michael worked for Peter Gatien, a Canadian man who owned a network of clubs in New York. Michael's parties at venues like Limelight and the Tunnel became the stuff of legend. One of his most infamous events was the Blood Feast, where guests were encouraged to wear all white while Alig himself doused them in fake blood. But let's not sugarcoat it. The club kids had a dark side too. Their world was fueled by drugs. Ecstasy was always big on the club scene, but in later years they dabbled in Special K, aka ketamine, and rohypnol. Eventually, heroin made its way onto the scene.
So the movement segued from being this, this really talented, creative pool of individuals into a bunch of drug addicts.
A lot of the drug dealers were club kids also, and Michael arranged for them to be on the nightclub's payroll. Michael was not immune to the temptation of drugs. The dealers gave him drugs too. By 1996, he was a full-blown addict, injecting heroin every day. Two of these dealers were Robert Riggs, who went by the nickname Freeze, and Angel Melendez, who went by Angel. Freeze was described as highly intelligent and loved a deep conversation. Freeze started in New York, making hats and costumes for local drag queens, but what Freeze really wanted was to be part of the club kids, and he was broke. So when he was given the chance to be one of Michael's dealers, he took it. It's a similar story with Angel, who got that nickname because of 6-foot angel wings he would always wear. He was dealing at several of Peter Gatien's clubs, but he always wanted to be one of the club kids and was kinda on the outside, looking in, as we can see in this clip from the Joan Rivers show. And in pretty much everything I've seen about this case, he's just referred to as a drug dealer. But he was still a person and a victim. So I'm going to try to tell you a bit more about him. Angel was described by his friends as very sweet, vulnerable, and a bit confused. So it wasn't like he was some big, tough guy, drug dealer type. Angel was 24 years old and just a really handsome guy. He lived in Queens, which was a really rough part of New York at the time. But he often stayed with his friends in Manhattan, including his friend Michael Alig. Angel was drawn to the Manhattan nightlife and was trying to make a name for himself.
He would wear his angel wings and his costumes and his 10-inch platform shoes. He was always a sight to see, and he had many friends within the club kid scene.
Angel occasionally stayed at Michael's Manhattan apartment in exchange for drugs. By the spring of 1996, Michael's addiction had made that arrangement increasingly tense. His demand for free drugs kept growing. Angel felt used. In addition, following a drug bust at the Limelight owner Peter Gatien had banned all dealers from the club one day in early March. Angel was forbidden entry before that day. When Angel saw Michael in another club a few days later, he was furious. Angel wanted $1,400 he said was owed to him by Michael's boss, Peter Gatien.
Demanded his money, and they got into an argument, and they got into a fight, and I remember that Michael had a bruise on his neck from the fight.
Then, early on the morning of March 17th, Angel showed up at Michael's apartment. Two others were there, one of Michael's boyfriends and his roommate Robert Riggs, also known as Freeze. Once inside the apartment, Angel again demanded his money, and he was drunk. He wanted Michael to take him in a cab to Peter's house at 9 on a Sunday morning and get him some money. Everyone in the apartment was high on heroin, rohypnol, cocaine, and ecstasy. No one had slept the night before, so Michael convinced Angel to go to sleep, and they would figure it out when they woke up. A few hours later, Michael's boyfriend started to choke on his tongue and turn blue. He was having an overdose. From experience, Michael knew some coke might help restart his boyfriend's heart. Michael and Freeze begged Angel for cocaine to save their friend, but Angel refused. At that point, Michael stole Angel's cocaine and gave it to his boyfriend, who slowly recovered. He then went into the escalating argument. Michael admits he was high on so many drugs at the time that his memory is fuzzy. At some point, he says, the argument turned physical. He claims Angel threw him against a glass cabinet. Then Freeze grabbed a hammer and struck Angel 3 times on the head.
Very hard. It was just like a tap like that, and it just made Angel more mad. And he had this death grip on on my chin, on my chest. And Freeze says I took a pillow, but I thought it was a sweatshirt. I don't even know what it was. That we were just so high. It was just like, and I pushed his face back like that, and he pulled him back, and he fell back, and he wasn't moving. And then we realized
Angel was dead. Michael had smothered him. Oh, you can believe what you want about that murder. I guess the only people who will ever really know are the people who were there. However, the real crazy stuff happened after he died. They filled Michael's bath with ice. Michael poured Drano down Angel's throat and duct taped his mouth to cover the smell. He also put a bunch of other cleaning supplies in the tub to cover the smell. Then they kind of just went on living life like nothing ever happened. Michael even threw a party in his apartment as Angel decayed in his bathroom. For the next 4 or 5 days, they kept themselves constantly drugged up. They periodically went back to replenish the ice. Eventually, they knew Angel's body would start to smell and they would have to get rid of it.
all I remember saying is, Freeze, it's gone. It's much too late now to do anything. To even call the police and say, oh, well, you know what, 10 days ago this happened and we just now decided to call you. I said, we are either going to be caught with this dead body in our apartment, or we have to, get rid of it somehow. And we have to do it today, like in 15 minutes, because it's that bad, And when we walked into the apartment, it was that bad.
Michael decided that the only way to remove the body from the apartment was to dismember it and put it into a box. Michael agreed to chop the legs off if Freeze gave him 10 bags of heroin. Michael got so high, he was able to carry out the gruesome task of separating Angel's legs from his torso. He then put the legs into 2 bags and then the body into the box. They took the gruesome cargo down in the building's main elevator, out through the lobby and into a waiting cab with Freeze. The cab dropped them off at the Hudson River, where they dumped the bags and the box into the water. Angel's limbs sank, but the box floated. They could only watch helplessly as the current took it away. After the murder, Michael made no attempt to keep it secret. He first called his mom shortly after the murder.
He was crying, he was blubbering, he would be saying things like, oh my God, I think I should just die. What have I done? Mom, what should I do? There was a murder, and what murder? Well, Angel, but little pieces, Mom, little pieces. I didn't know what to make of it. I'm being woken up out of a deep sleep and I'm saying, Michael, you're high, aren't you? And he said, yes. So I didn't sing anything. I wiped it out of my memory, that call.
He didn't keep it a secret on the club scene either. In fact, Michael would tell anyone who would listen exactly what he and Freeze had done to Angel. Nobody believed him, though. After all, Michael was always shocking and attention-seeking. Making up a story like this didn't seem that out of character for him. 2 weeks after the murder, Michael saw a lawyer. The lawyer took pictures of bruises on his chest and arms. Michael was trying to show that the murder had been in self-defense. The lawyer told Michael to turn himself in, or at least keep his mouth shut. Michael did neither. By April of 1996, Angel's brother Johnny became concerned. Johnny didn't really understand the lifestyle Angel was living, but he still loved him and spoke to him occasionally. Angel had a beeper that Johnny used to contact him, but for weeks Angel had not been responding. So Johnny reported Angel missing to the Manhattan police. The police were polite, but they had no leads. Besides, Angel was a known drug dealer and Colombian immigrant gay drug dealer at that. This was 1996, and these kind of people were not a top priority for police at that time. Johnny knew this and started his own investigation into his brother's disappearance. He hung up missing persons flyers around Manhattan. He visited nightclubs he knew Angel hung out at. When he talked to club goers, he was shocked that everyone had heard rumors about Michael and Freeze killing and dismembering his brother. Johnny called Michael's friend, James St. James.
He was sobbing, as any brother would, and that was one of the first times that it connected with me that there's an actual person who's been murdered, and it's not just about Michael anymore. We had all began thinking of Michael as a murderer instead of Angel as a victim.
Meanwhile, Michael had started working with the DEA. The DEA was determined to take down Michael's boss, Peter Gatchian, as a drug lord, because all of the drugs coming in and out of his clubs. Michael referred to Peter as a mentor and father figure. Peter had been paying for Michael's apartment and lifestyle for years, but Michael was quick to turn on him to save himself. Michael even told DEA agents that he had killed Angel Melendez, but the agents ignored it. They needed Michael to be a credible witness in their case against Peter Gatchian. As the months went on and Angel remained missing, the club kids started to think Michael Alig might not have been joking about killing him. Gossip columnist Michael Musto wrote a blind item about the murder for The Village Voice.
A popular club kid has been missing for weeks, and the word on the street is that he's been murdered. The two suspects are also well-known club kids, and they were involved in a dispute with the victim. The victim was a drug dealer, and the suspects are rumored to have killed him over a drug deal gone wrong. The victim's body has not been found, but the suspects are said to have dismembered him and dumped his body in a river. The police are investigating the case, but they have not yet made any arrests. In the meantime, the club kid community is on edge, and everyone is wondering who will be the next victim.
The coverage expanded to several newspapers, including the New York Times and a cover story in the Village Voice. All these news outlets named Michael Alig as a killer by name, portraying him as a remorseless killer. By that point, he started saying on the record that it was all a wild fabrication.
He said, no, absolutely not true. Didn't do it. Just a rumor, started over jealousy, Angel's probably out of town, he was a drug dealer anyway. I mean, anything could have happened to Angel was sort of his response, but it definitely wasn't me.
The police could no longer ignore the missing club kid. Then, on Friday, September 8th, police fished a corpse out of the Harlem River. News reports speculated that it was the missing drug dealer. The body wasn't Angel's, but the story caught the attention of a police officer in Staten Island.
The story was that Angel was chopped up and discarded into the Hudson River. Being that we had a body with missing body parts, we believe that, certainly that we should do a check to see if we had that body.
In fact, a body had been found back in April. A group of children had stumbled across a box on a Staten Island beach. The body was inside, wrapped in a sheet and then a blanket. There were 3 blunt traumas to the back of their head which looked like half moons, like the back of a hammer, that you would bang a nail in, and the legs were cut off. The police in Staten Island used dental records to make a positive ID. On November 2nd, 1996, the day after what would have been Angel's 26th birthday, police announced that they had found the missing club kid. The discovery put Michael Alig in an uncomfortable position. Nearly every detail of the rumor was confirmed by Angel's corpse. There was no way Michael could explain it away as a coincidence, and no way for the police to ignore it. Now, under intense scrutiny from both local and federal authorities, Michael Alig fled New York City in November 1996 and holed up with a boyfriend at a motel in Toms River, New Jersey. On December 4th, 1996, the Manhattan DA's office issued a warrant for the arrest of Michael Alig and his accomplice, Robert Riggs. Michael was arrested at the hotel and went with cops without any incident. His accomplice, Freeze, was arrested in Manhattan and gave a full confession to police. The police said that Freeze seemed happy to get all this off of his chest. Michael, however, did not want to plead guilty in court and wanted to argue that the murder was self-defense. Alig's attorney, after looking into his client's background, firmly advised him to avoid a trial and work out a deal with prosecutors.
His lawyer, when I saw the posters of some of the parties and when I saw things in print that imitated the facts of the crime, which I knew about, then I was very much worried. So my advice to Michael was that our chances of winning are nil.
In September 1997, Michael Alig and Freeze pleaded guilty to manslaughter and were both sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. Obviously, Michael's sentence upset a lot of people. 10 years for such a brutal murder didn't seem like enough. The family of Angel Melendez was devastated.
It hurts me because my brother trusted these people so much. He trusted them so much. What am I going to miss most of him? A lot of things. Small things. I'm just going to miss him.
So after Michael was thrown in jail, it was pretty much not cool to be a club kid anymore, and the scene kind of just went away. Michael did not have the typical prison experience. He got tons of fan mail, a lot of people would send him money, and he did a ton of drugs in prison. In fact, he would say that they were easier to get inside jail than they were outside.
Were you all with the corrections officers?
That kind of shocked me when I first got there, how friendly everybody was, playing cards and on first name basis and things like that, knowing about their kids and their pets and you know, burying their cats and dogs and making portraits of children and things like that.
I think people were bringing in Omaha steaks to you guys?
Yeah, well, officers were.
Officers were.
Mm-hmm.
What did you see come and go that you can now talk
mostly
about?
Like, you know, mostly cooking utensils, like frying pans and skillets and electric skillets and coffee pots, coffee makers and things like that.
What about drugs? Because now this place is being looked very closely into. That's a given.
Yeah, I mean.
Heroin?
Heroin, cocaine, ecstasy, marijuana.
All of it. Who brings it in?
I know you want me to say the officers.
No, I don't want you to say anything. Tell me the truth. The officers, the doctors, the nurses?
There have been occasions when officers were caught bringing these things in, and then they usually have some kind of deal made with the inmates where they'll get rid of.
Michael spent years in solitary for getting caught with heroin. Drug tests would even show that he used heroin in solitary, so he was kept there longer. Michael even went to a drug detox in prison. Robert Freeze Riggs was paroled in 2010. He went into academia. Freeze is an associate researcher for a prison initiative at Bard College, New York. He lives in New York and has maintained a low profile since his release, choosing to keep his life private. When Michael Alig was released from prison in 2014, he chose a different route than his accomplice. He spent his first 2 weeks of his release talking to the media about Angel Melendez's murder.
That, like in the movie, Freeze picked up a hammer and hit Angel with the metal claw end of the hammer, the metal part of the hammer. He didn't do that. He hit him with the wooden handle of the hammer. He didn't even hit him. I mean, I'm not saying it was great that he hit him. He shouldn't have hit him at all. But he didn't hit him with any intent to do such egregious bodily harm. I mean, autopsy says asphyxiation.
Which was at your hand.
It was at my hand.
In some of these interviews, Michael said he wanted to start a reality show and open an art exhibition. Michael was also trying to sell his diaries, start a clothing line, and a career as a writer for a magazine. Aside from a handful of art exhibits, all this stuff apparently did not pan out, but he did release a dance song called What's In with DJ Kioki. Low-key, it's a bop. Michael didn't think he could be canceled just for killing someone. He tried to become a social media star by starting the YouTube channel The PU with fellow club kid Ernie Glam. The pair posted hundreds of videos, but they were unsuccessful. Michael made most of his money since being released from prison by selling a lot of club kids memorabilia on eBay after museums refused to host the memorabilia. He tried to restart his career as a nightlife persona, but failed miserably. Most of his gigs were canceled due to protests. It seemed like no one was interested in working with the king of the club kids. Michael's drug addiction never left. In 2017, he was arrested at a park in the Bronx at 2 in the morning with a crystal meth pipe and some of the drugs in his pocket. Michael claimed that he was actually going to return the drugs for one of his addict friends. At the end of 2017, Michael was in the spotlight again after he had child drag queen Desmond Is Amazing on an episode of the PU. People were outraged.
Alig was arrested for brutally murdering his drug dealer. He literally brutally chopped the man up and threw him into the Hudson River. Your classic murder story. He spent 17 years in prison. Then on his show, 10-year-old Desmond sat between him and his fellow club member Ernie Glam, making stilted conversation about the child's favorite television shows, RuPaul's Drag Race and Dragula. Over their heads was a painting of a cartoon child skipping rope with the words Rohypnol. Rohypnol is a well-known date rape drug often used to incapacitate victims marked for sexual assault. So you can definitely 100% see the Rohypnol.
In the summer of 2018, Michael revealed he was homeless and sleeping under a bridge. He found an apartment, but by 2019 he was homeless again and begging for a financial backer on his YouTube channel. Michael started appearing incoherent on the PU. On Christmas Eve of 2020, Michael Alig was found dead alone in his Manhattan apartment by an ex-boyfriend. An autopsy determined he died of an accidental overdose of heroin, fentanyl, and meth. Michael Alig's life and death serve as a cautionary tale of how drugs can lead a talented individual into someone who does horrible things and ruins the lives of others as well as himself. Alright, that is the story of Michael Alig. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next time.